Good evening, my dear listeners. Welcome to Cozy Mysteries Bedtime Stories. I'm your host, Edmund Blackwood. Pull up a comfy chair, perhaps with a spot of tea or a warm blanket, and let us journey back to the elegant yet perilous world of 1920s England. Tonight, we embark on a tale of intrigue and impossible crime, Hercule Poirot and the final answer revealed. Chapter 1. Introduction and Setup. The autumn of 1925 had draped the county of Kent in a shroud of burnt amber and bruised purple. Leaves drifted from the beeches like the dying embers of a grand fire, and the air carried that particular English chill that seeps into the bones and whispers of secrets long buried. Eldridge Manor stood at the end of a winding lime-tree avenue, a brooding Jacobean pile of mellowed red brick and twisted chimneys that had surveyed the Weald for 3 centuries. Its windows, tall, mullioned and slightly warped by time, glinted like watchful eyes as the late afternoon sun bled across the sky. To the casual observer, Eldridge was merely another stately home sliding gently into genteel decay. But to those who knew its history, it was a treasure vault, a mausoleum, and a battlefield all in one. Colonel Archibald Harrington, great-uncle to the present owner, had plundered half the Valley of the Kings during the war years. Filling the house with golden death masks, alabaster canopic jars, lapis-inlaid scarabs, and papyri so fragile they crumbled at a breath. The British Museum had begged, threatened, and finally despaired. The Harringtons kept what they took, and what they took, some said, kept them in return. Sir Reginald Harrington, 63, gaunt as a mummy himself, now ruled this shadowed kingdom from a wheelchair that creaked across the parquet like the complaint of the dead. His skin had the papery translucence of a man who has stared too long at desert suns. His eyes, once the piercing blue of Nile lotuses, had faded to the colour of dusty turquoise. A mysterious ailment, contracted, he claimed, in the tomb of Meneptah, had been eating him from the inside for years. The doctors muttered about slow poisons, heavy metals, or simply the curse that every Egyptologist fears. Sir Reginald laughed at curses. He laughed at doctors even more. Yet laugh he did, rasping and humourless, when he summoned his scattered family and retainers with a single imperious telegram, dispatched to 6 addresses across Britain and the continent. Eldridge. Friday. Final arrangements. Attend or be damned. R.H. Final arrangements. The phrase hung in the crisp October air, like incense in a crypt. Everyone understood. Sir Reginald was rewriting his will. Again, and this time, he promised, it would be the last. The first to arrive, on a drizzling Thursday afternoon, was Lady Evelyn Harrington, Sir Reginald's second wife, 38 years his junior, and still possessed of the kind of beauty that made men forget their manners and women their charity. Her motor car, a sleek bottle-green Daimler, purred up the drive with theatrical slowness, as though announcing a star's entrance at Covent Garden. Evelyn had been Evelyn Devereux once, darling of the West End stage, famed for her Cleopatra and her Lady Macbeth. She had traded footlights for footmen, but the habit of performance never left her. Today she wore a cloak of midnight velvet lined with sable, a cloche hat tilted at a rakish angle, and an expression of weary martyrdom that could have melted ice. "Darling Jenkins," she sighed as the butler relieved her of a mountain of Louis Vuitton, "tell me the old monster hasn't started without me." Jenkins, tall, silver-haired, face carved from teak after 40 years of Harrington service, allowed the ghost of a smile. "His lordship is in the long gallery, my lady, admiring the new acquisitions." Evelyn rolled her kohl-rimmed eyes. He means tormenting them. By dusk, the house began to fill like a stage set Before the Curtain Rises. Captain Victor Harrington, Sir Reginald's only son and heir presumptive, roared up in a battered Bentley that looked as though it had seen more battlefields than racetracks. 35, sun-bronzed from dubious adventures in Kenya, Victor still wore his old regimentals in spirit, the erect bearing, the clipped moustache, the eyes that had seen too much and cared too little. Debts clung to him the way medals once had. White's, Brooks, and half a dozen less reputable establishments held his markers. He greeted his stepmother with a kiss that lingered half a second too long and a murmur that made her laugh like breaking crystal. Next came Miss Amelia Harrington, Sir Reginald's niece, descending from a first-class carriage at Tunbridge Station with the prim severity of a Victorian governess. 41, unmarried, and proud of both facts, Amelia wore bombazine and good works the way other women wore pearls. She had devoted her life to the Harrington collection, cataloguing, lecturing, and fundraising to turn Eldridge into a public museum. A sacred trust, she called it. Sir Reginald called it meddling. Dr. Lionel Forsyth arrived in a discreet black Humber, medical bag clutched like a talisman. 60, portly, with a watch chain straining across his waistcoat and a faint aroma of ether and whiskey, Forsyth had been the family physician since Victor's measles. He prescribed, he listened, and most crucially, he kept secrets. His own laudanum habit was one of them. The fact that Sir Reginald's symptoms mirrored certain exotic toxins Forsyth kept locked in his surgery was another. Miss Clara Beaumont, Sir Reginald's private secretary, had been in residence for a fortnight, preparing documents. 28, auburn-haired, with the kind of cool composure that suggested icebergs and hidden depths, Clara had fled Cairo 5 years earlier, after her fiancé, an archaeologist, vanished during a dig funded by Harrington money. Rumour said the young man had discovered something Sir Reginald wanted buried forever. Clara now lived among the relics that had stolen her future, her fingers stained with papyrus dust, and her eyes forever watchful. And finally, on Friday morning, when the fog began to gather like a conspirator in the hollows, arrived the most improbable guest of all, Hercule Poirot, retired, or so he claimed, from the Belgian Sûreté, hero of 100 cases, possessor of the most magnificent moustaches in Europe, stepped from a gleaming Rolls-Royce Phantom, as though alighting onto a stage built solely for him. He wore a fur-collared overcoat despite the mild weather, patent leather shoes that reflected the gravel, and a hat tilted at precisely the angle that proclaimed genius. His valet, George, followed with 2 valises and an expression of long-suffering dignity. Poirot paused at the threshold, inhaling the scent of damp leaves and ancient stone. "Ah, mon Dieu," he murmured to himself, "what a theatre for tragedy! One feels it in the air, n'est-ce pas? The little grey cells, they tingle already." Jenkins greeted him with the faintest bow. "Welcome to Eldridge Manor, Monsieur Poirot. Sir Reginald is expecting you." "Expecting or dreading?" Poirot's eyes twinkled. "We shall see." Sir Reginald received his guest in the Egyptian room, a chamber that had once been a library but was now a shrine to his obsession. Golden sarcophagi lined the walls. A life-size statue of Anubis guarded the fireplace. Glass cases glittered with amulets and funerary jewels. The air smelled of myrrh, dust, and something metallic that might have been blood. "Monsieur Poirot," Sir Reginald rasped from his wheelchair, "you honour a dying man." "Dying, monsieur? One hears rumours." Poirot inclined his head, but death, She is a mistress who keeps her own counsel." Sir Reginald's laugh turned into a cough. "I invited you because I trust no one else to see clearly. This weekend I reveal my final will. There are those who would prefer I took my secrets to the grave. I intend to disappoint them." Poirot's gaze drifted across the room, lingering on a jewelled dagger displayed beneath glass. Its blade curved like a serpent, its hilt encrusted with carnelian scarabs. "Secrets, monsieur, have a habit of clawing their way back from the tomb." Dinner that evening was a masterpiece of civility stretched over a pit of vipers. The dining table, mahogany long enough to seat 30, groaned beneath silver candelabra and Sèvres porcelain. Sir Reginald presided at the head, skeletal fingers clutching a golden ankh as though it might ward off the inevitable. To his right sat Lady Evelyn, diamonds flashing at her throat like tiny accusations. Captain Victor, already halfway through the claret, recounted exaggerated tales of big game hunting. Amelia nibbled watercress and corrected his geography. Dr. Forsyth prescribed himself another whisky. Clara Beaumont, seated at the foot to take notes if needed, watched everything with the stillness of a cat at a mousehole. Conversation tiptoed around the subject everyone tasted on their tongues. At last Sir Reginald raised his glass, Waterford crystal trembling slightly in his grip. "To family," he croaked, "and to the final answer." Glasses rose, smiles froze. Later, in the drawing-room, coffee was served in cups delicate as eggshells. Fog pressed against the French windows, thick as wool. The fire crackled, casting shadows that danced like tomb robbers across the tapestries. Poirot, ensconced in a winged armchair, observed the tableau with the contentment of a connoisseur. Lady Evelyn's laugh was too brittle. Victor's hand strayed too often to the decanter. Amelia's knuckles widened around her rosary. Forsyth's eyes darted to the clock. Clara's fingers traced invisible hieroglyphs on her skirt. Jenkins moved among them silent, as a shadow, refilling, retreating, watching. At 11, Sir Reginald announced his intention to work late in the study. "The will must be perfect," he declared. "Clara, attend me for 1 hour. Then I lock myself in. No disturbances." The study lay at the rear of the house, a fortress of oak and iron. Its door was 2 inches thick, fitted with a Chubb lock of the latest design. The windows were barred, after a burglary in 22, and bolted from within. A single key existed, and Sir Reginald wore it on a chain around his neck. No fireplace wide enough for entry, no dumbwaiter, no secret passage. Poirot would confirm that later with childish delight. Clara followed her employer inside. The door closed. The key turned with a decisive click. The house settled into uneasy quiet. Fog swallowed the world beyond the windows. Somewhere, a clock chimed the half-hour, then midnight. In his room, Poirot prepared for bed with ritual precision. Tisane brewed, moustaches waxed, the little grey cells lulled by a chapter of Rousseau. Yet sleep eluded him. He sat by the window, watching the mist writhe like the breath of some ancient god. At 1 o'clock, the grandfather clock in the hall struck the hour with sombre authority. No one heard a cry. No one heard a struggle. The fog kept its counsel. Chapter 2. The Crime Discovered. Saturday morning crept over Eldridge Manor like a thief, grey and reluctant. The fog that had descended the night before had not lifted. If anything, it had thickened into a living entity, pressing wet fingers against every window pane and swallowing the gardens whole. No bird sang, no church bell from the distant village penetrated the muffling veil. The estate was an island adrift in a milky sea, cut off from the world as thoroughly as any pharaoh's tomb. Jenkins moved through the corridors with the precision of 40 years' habit. At precisely 7:45, he prepared Sir Reginald's breakfast tray. Weak lapsang souchong, 1 thinly sliced pear, dry toast soldiers, and the Morning Post opened with a silver letter knife. At 8 o'clock sharp he knocked on the study door. 3 measured raps. "Sir Reginald, your tea, sir." Silence. He knocked again, louder. The tray rattled slightly in his grip. "Sir Reginald!" A prickle ran down Jenkins's spine, the kind that comes when routine fractures. He set the tray on the hall table and tried the handle. Locked. Of course, Sir Reginald had turned the key himself at 11:30, after dismissing Miss Beaumont. Jenkins had heard the decisive click from the servants' corridor. Panic flickered, banked quickly by decades of training. He hurried to fetch Lady Evelyn, who emerged from her boudoir in a peach silk dressing gown, hair tumbling like a Titian painting. "Jenkins, whatever is the matter? It's barbarously early." "His lordship does not answer, my lady. The door is locked from within." Evelyn's hand flew to her throat. "The key! He wears it always." Her voice sharpened. "Wake the others, now!" Within minutes the household assembled in the chill hallway, night clothes hidden beneath hastily donned robes. Captain Victor, eyes bloodshot from whisky and sleeplessness, rattled the handle himself. Solid as a coffin lid. Dr. Forsyth, spectacles askew, pressed his ear to the oak. No sound, no breathing. He peered through the keyhole and recoiled. Good God, the key is in the lock, on the inside. Miss Amelia clutched her dressing gown like armour. Uncle would never— Her voice cracked. We must break it down. Poirot appeared last, impeccably composed in a charcoal suit despite the hour, moustaches waxed to perfection. He carried no cane today. Instead, his small hands were clasped behind his back. "Patience, mes amis," he murmured. "First, we observe." He knelt, elegantly, as though genuflecting before royalty, and examined the threshold. No scratches, no forced entry. The carpet bore only the faint indentations of Sir Reginald's wheelchair from the previous evening. Victor fetched the fire-axe from the great hall. 3 blows shuddered the ancient oak. The lock splintered on the 4th. The door swung inward on protesting hinges. The study smelled of ink, myrrh, and something sharper, coppery. Sir Reginald Harrington sat slumped forward over his desk, head resting on folded arms as though merely napping. But the jewelled dagger protruding from his back, its serpent blade buried to the hilt between the shoulder blades, told a different story. Blood had soaked through his brocade-smoking jacket, pooling beneath the wheelchair and dripping with slow inevitability onto the Persian rug. One skeletal hand still clutched a scrap of papyrus, its hieroglyphs stark black against gold. Poirot stepped forward, gloved fingers gentle as he lifted the note. He read aloud in a voice soft as falling dust. "He who disturbs the rest of kings shall find no rest himself." Amelia gasped. "The curse! From the Merneptah tomb." Uncle laughed at the priest's warning. "Superstition," Poirot said briskly, though his eyes lingered on the inscription. "Observe, fresh ink on ancient paper. Curious." The room itself was a locked sarcophagus, heavy velvet curtains still drawn. No window showed signs of tampering. The iron bars outside were thick as a man's wrist, bolts rusted firmly in place. Dust lay undisturbed on the sills. No chimney, merely a small ventilation grate too narrow for a child. The walls, panelled in dark walnut, yielded no hollow echo when Poirot tapped them methodically. "Impossible," Victor whispered. "Father locked himself in at 11:30. Clara left him alive and well. No one could enter, no one could leave." Yet someone had. The dagger was no suicide weapon. The angle was wrong, driven downward with force. Sir Reginald had been right-handed. The wound entered from above and slightly left, as though delivered by someone standing behind him. Dr. Forsyth knelt, professional mask slipping. Dead 6 to 8 hours, rigour beginning in the jaw, time of death, between midnight and 2. Lady Evelyn swayed. Victor caught her with suspicious readiness. "Poison," she breathed. Forsyth shook his head. The dagger killed him, though his chronic condition may have weakened resistance. Poirot's gaze swept the desk, scattered papers, an overturned inkwell, the golden ankh askew. The safe in the corner stood open, empty. The will, Sir Reginald's final answer, was gone. Upstairs the house stirred like a disturbed ant-hill. Maids whimpered, footmen stood pale. Telephone lines were down. Storm damage, the exchange claimed when Jenkins finally reached them. The single motor launch at the boathouse was useless. The moat had swollen into a lake. Roads impassable. They were marooned. By 10 o'clock, Inspector Japp arrived, having bullied a local farmer into ferrying him across flooded fields on horseback. He stomped in, dripping, helmet under one arm. "Poirot, you blessed nuisance! Another locked room? I'll have grey hairs yet." "Mon cher Japp, you already possess them. Come, observe the perfection of the crime." Japp surveyed the scene and swore softly. No footprints in the dew outside the windows. Bars intact. Door locked from within. Key on the inside. And that blessed fog. No one could approach unseen. Preliminary searches began. In Victor's room, gambling IOUs totalling £30,000. In Evelyn's boudoir, love letters from a West End actor, perfumed and passionate. Amelia's desk yielded forged letters soliciting museum funds under false pretenses. Forsyth's medical bag contained a vial labelled Rare Nile Toxin, Antidote Unknown. Clara's diary held sketches of tomb traps and a pressed flower from Cairo. Jenkins' quarters, a savings book swollen beyond a butler's wage, and a faded photograph of a younger Sir Reginald shaking hands with a man who looked remarkably like Jenkins, before the butler's references were perhaps embellished. The papyrus note was examined under Poirot's magnifying glass. "The hand is educated," he declared, "not Sir Reginald's spidery scrawl. Someone wished us to think of curses." Alibis were paper-thin. Lady Evelyn, retired at 11, took a sleeping draught, heard nothing. Victor, drank brandy in the library until 1, alone. Amelia, prayed in the chapel until midnight. Forsyth, checked the housemaid's tonsillitis, then bed. Clara, finished typing at 11:30, read in my room. Jenkins, locked up at 12. My quarters are above the kitchen, heard no buzzer from the study. Buzzer! Poirot's eyes gleamed. A silent alarm, Jenkins explained reluctantly. Installed after the 22 burglary, Sir Reginald could summon me without raising the house. Yet no summons had come. By noon, the drawing-room had become an interrogation chamber. Fog still clung outside like a shroud. Tension crackled. Accusations hovered unspoken. Poirot stood before the fireplace, small and neat as a black cat. "We are sealed in with a murderer," he announced quietly. "The impossible has occurred, but Hercule Poirot does not believe in the impossible, only in that which has not yet been explained." Somewhere in the house, a clock chimed the half-hour. No one moved. The final answer, it seemed, had become death itself. Chapter 3. Investigation begins. The drawing-room at Eldridge Manor had never felt smaller. Heavy brocade curtains still drawn against the fog, the air hung thick with beeswax, fear, and the faint metallic tang that seemed to seep through the walls from the study. A grandfather clock ticked with mournful authority, each strike a reminder that time was no longer Sir Reginald's ally, nor perhaps theirs. Hercule Poirot stood before the Adam fireplace like a diminutive general marshalling invisible troops. His patent leather shoes gleamed, his moustaches pointed skyward with defiant precision. Inspector Japp lounged against the doorframe, helmet tucked beneath one arm, chewing a toothpick as though it were the only thing keeping him sane. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, voice soft yet carrying to every corner, "we begin. Not with panic, no, with order, with method, with the psychology of the crime. Observe," Poirot tapped the board, "a window of opportunity no wider than 90 minutes. The fog has made our manor an island. No outsider could approach unseen. Therefore, the assassin is among us." Lady Evelyn sank onto a chaise longue, pressing a lace handkerchief to lips that had lost their colour. "This is monstrous. Reginald was difficult, yes, but murder?" Victor paced like a caged Bengal, boots thudding on the Aubusson carpet. "Father had enemies. Egyptian antiquities breed them like flies, but to strike here, in his own fortress?" Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Precisely, Capitaine. A fortress breached from within." He began with the room itself. Japp's constables had photographed every angle. Now Poirot prowled the study like a fastidious cat. He measured the distance from desk to door, 4 paces, examined the dagger's hilt beneath a lens. No fingerprints save Sir Reginald's own, and those smudged as though the blade had been wiped, then regrasped in death throes. "The papyrus," Poirot murmured, holding the curse to the light. "The ink is fresh, Chiles green mixed with modern gum arabic, not ancient. Someone raided the conservation drawer in the Egyptian room." Dr. Forsyth shifted uncomfortably. "I noticed supplies missing last week." Poirot whirled. "You, docteur, noticed, yet said nothing?" Forsyth flushed. "I assumed Miss Beaumont." Clara Beaumont, standing pale by the window, lifted her chin. "I catalogued every drop. Someone else has access." Poirot's gaze swept them all. "We shall see." He turned to the buzzer system. Jenkins demonstrated the discreet ivory button beneath the desk's leather top. A wire ran through the floor to the butler's pantry. Pressed once, steady ring, twice urgent. "Yet last night," Jenkins said, voice cracking for the first time in 40 years, "not a peep." "Curious," Poirot mused. "Sir Reginald feared poison, no? He installed this alarm after the 22 attempt. Why no cry for help?" Amelia Harrington clutched her prayer book until the leather creaked. "Because the curse is real. The priests warned. Pah!" Poirot dismissed superstition with a wave. "We deal with flesh, not phantoms." Interviews began in the winter conservatory, where lemon trees and orchids masked the scent of suspicion. Poirot sat beneath a potted palm, notebook balanced on one knee like a judge's gavel. Lady Evelyn first. She floated in trailing lilac chiffon, eyes red-rimmed yet luminous. "Reginald threatened to cut me off entirely," she confessed, voice trembling. "Said my extravagances would bankrupt the estate. I prepare his nightly cocoa. Yes, I know how that sounds, but I loved him, in my fashion." Poirot's eyes softened a fraction. "Love, madame, has driven greater crimes than this." Captain Victor next, reeking faintly of last night's brandy. "Father bailed me out thrice. No more. 30,000 in debt. Those IOUs you found? Child's play compared to what I owe Solly Goldstein in Whitechapel. I was in the library until 1, drowning despair. Ask the decanter. It's half empty." "Your service revolver," Poirot said mildly, "is missing from your dressing case." Victor paled. "For protection. Fog like that. Who knows what lurks?" Miss Amelia followed, spine rigid as a ramrod. Uncle promised the collection to the nation, then laughed in my face. Said a woman had no business meddling with history. I was in the chapel until midnight, praying for his soul. Her lips twisted. Clearly, someone else answered those prayers. Dr. Forsyth lumbered in, sweating despite the chill. The poison in his system, chronic arsenic, I treated it for years. But last month, levels spiked. Someone accelerated the process. He opened his medical bag with shaking hands. The vial of Nile toxin glinted. For research, Poirot, not murder. Yet half empty, Poirot observed. And your alibi, the housemaid's tonsillitis. Conveniently, she slept through your visit. Clara Beaumont entered last among the family, cool as Nile water. Sir Reginald discovered my fiancée didn't die in a collapse. He was buried alive for finding a cartouche, proving the Harringtons looted a royal tomb. Blackmail kept me here 5 years. Her fingers traced the air as though sketching hieroglyphs. I cleaned that dagger yesterday. The blade was dull. Someone sharpened it. Finally, Jenkins standing at attention. 40 years, sir. He accused me of pilfering a scarab in 19, threatened prison. My savings book. Honest bonuses, I swear. Poirot closed his notebook with a snap. All motives clear as the Nile in flood. Greed, fear, revenge, preservation of secrets. But the locked door, this is the nut Hercule Poirot must crack. Back in the study, he reconstructed the scene. Sat in Sir Reginald's wheelchair, mimed writing the will, then suddenly clutched his chest. The killer was already here, Japp suggested. Or entered after, Poirot countered. He lay on the rug, eye to keyhole. The key turns from inside, yet perhaps not by a hand inside. He noticed something then. A faint scuff on the underside of the desk, as though a thread had snagged. And high above the door, a transom window painted shut decades ago. Its frame showed the tiniest flake of disturbed varnish. "Japp, mon ami," Poirot said softly. "Bring me fishing line and the thinnest crochet hook in the house. We test a theory." As constables searched for tools, Poirot gathered everyone in the hall. Fog still pressed against the windows like a living shroud. "We have lies," he announced. "Captain Victor's decanter was full this morning. Jenkins refilled it at 6. Lady Evelyn's cocoa cup bore traces of veronal, enough to fell a horse. Dr. Forsyth's vial? Mismatched label, newly applied." Chapter 4. Clues and Red Herrings. The second day at Eldridge Manor dawned clearer, yet the air inside remained thick with suspicion. Sunlight filtered through the high windows of the long gallery, striking golden fire from the death masks of long-dead pharaohs. Their empty eyes seemed to follow the household as they gathered for a late breakfast that no one tasted. Hercule Poirot had not slept. His little grey cells, he confided to Japp, over coffee strong enough to wake the dead, had danced all night. Now he moved among the relics like a priest among idols, magnifying glass in hand, notebook ever ready. "Observe," announced to the assembled company, "the crime was not one act, but a tapestry of deception. The killer scattered false clues the way Anubis scattered jackal tracks to mislead grave robbers." He began with the dagger. Removed from the body and laid upon black velvet, its blade curved like a crescent moon, carnelian scarabs glinting on the hilt. "Authentic 18th dynasty," Clara Beaumont confirmed, voice steady as a curator's. "But observe the edge, freshly honed on a modern whetstone. Someone prepared this weapon days ago." Poirot nodded. "And its twin, missing from the display case since Wednesday. Who noticed?" No one had. Next, the papyrus curse. Under ultraviolet light borrowed from Forsyth's medical bag. Faint watermarks appeared. The stationery of the Savoy Hotel, London. Our killer, Poirot twinkled, has expensive taste in forgeries. A collective intake of breath. The Savoy, Lady Evelyn's favourite haunt. She paled beneath her rouge. Anyone could have taken a sheet from my writing case. Victor laughed bitterly. Like the love letters found in your boudoir, stepmother. Come to me when the old man is gone. Rather damning, wouldn't you say? Evelyn's hand flew to her pearls. Those were from months ago, and forged. My lover is in New York. Poirot raised a hand. Patience. We deal in facts, not histrionics. He produced a torn scrap of emerald silk caught on the study grate. From Madame's dressing gown. Burnt in haste, perhaps. I lent it to the maid, Evelyn stammered. The maid, summoned trembling, denied all knowledge. Then came Amelia's prayer book, discovered beneath the desk chair. Pages marked at Psalm 109. Let his days be few, and let another take his office. Amelia's lips thinned. I lost that book yesterday. Someone planted it. Dr. Forsyth's turn arrived with a vial found in the conservatory fernery. Laudanum, enough to fell an ox. Mine was stolen, he blustered. I keep meticulous records. Yet his medical log showed 3 unexplained absences the previous week. Clara Beaumont faced the sharpest scrutiny. In her room, searchers uncovered sketches of mechanical scarabs, tiny clockwork devices from the Ptolemaic period, capable of delivering poison darts. One drawing matched the wound's angle precisely. I study tomb traps, she said coolly. It's my profession. And your fiancé's death? Poirot asked softly. Sir Reginald's letter, found in the safe before it vanished, accusing him of deliberate sabotage to claim insurance on lost relics. Clara's composure cracked like thin ice. He murdered the man I loved for gold. Yes, I hated him. Even Jenkins did not escape. A blood-stained glove, his monogram, lay behind the study's false panel. Paint, not blood, he insisted. From restoring the Anubis statue, someone moved it. The red herrings multiplied like locusts. Revolver, Victor's missing Webley, surfaced in the boathouse, wrapped in oilcloth, 1 round fired. Practicing, Victor snarled. The fog made me nervous. A burnt fragment of the will fluttered from the library fireplace. To my devoted niece Amelia, sole inheritor of the collection. Amelia wept. Another forgery! Uncle promised the museum. Then the phonograph in the music room. Its wax cylinder recorded a ghostly argument at 12:47 a.m. Sir Reginald's rasping voice pleading, another muffled threatening. Yet the machine's dust showed it hadn't been touched in years. Someone carried it to the study, Japp growled, played it through the keyhole to mask the murder. Poirot tested the theory. The sound carried perfectly. Tension peaked at luncheon. Accusations flew like daggers. You poisoned his cocoa, Victor roared at Evelyn. You shot him and used string, she hurled back. Cursemonger, Forsyth accused Amelia. Blackmailer, she spat at Clara. Jenkins stood silent, but his eyes, ancient wounded, betrayed 40 years of buried resentment. Poirot watched it all, twirling his moustache until it threatened rebellion. That afternoon he staged reconstructions. First, the transom window theory. A fishing rod threaded with silk cord, looping the key. It worked, almost. The key turned, but the cord snapped under tension. Possible, Poirot conceded, but leaving trace fibres, none found. Next, the buzzer wire, cut and spliced? No, intact. Then the collapsible staff from the collection, an Egyptian relic of jointed bronze extending 3 meters. Clara demonstrated. It reached the key from the transom ledge. Brilliant, Japp exclaimed. Yet the ledge showed no scuff marks, no dust disturbed. Another blind alley, Poirot sighed. As evening purpled the sky, a new horror. Dr. Forsyth collapsed in the Egyptian room, clutching his throat, eyes rolling white. Poison, nightshade in his brandy. He recovered barely under his own antidote. "Someone tried to silence me," he wheezed. "I know too much about the arsenic levels." All eyes turned to Clara. Her sketches included nightshade recipes from Thebes. "I was in the library," she cried. The library log showed her borrowing a book on curses at 6:12 p.m., but no witness. Poirot gathered them in the long gallery as dusk fell. Torches flickered in the wind that had finally risen, scattering fog like cobwebs. "We have been led by the nose," he declared. The killer plant's clues pointing to everyone, ensuring universal suspicion, classic misdirection, but one detail does not fit the pattern. He held aloft a tiny golden scarab, found beneath Sir Reginald's desk. This was not in the inventory. New, modern gold, yet engraved with hieroglyphs spelling traitor. Who brought this here? Silence. And the safe, Poirot continued, cracked from within. Only someone knowing the combination, Sir Reginald himself, could open it. Or someone he trusted enough to let inside after locking. Gasps echoed off the vaulted ceiling. The murderer was admitted voluntarily, Poirot said softly, then killed, then locked the door from outside using, but that is for later. Victor lunged at Forsyth. "You were his doctor! He trusted you!" Evelyn screamed. Amelia fainted. Clara stood frozen, eyes like polished obsidian. Japp's constables separated them barely in time. Poirot raised both hands. "Enough! Tomorrow we confront the truth. Tonight, lock your doors. The killer grows desperate." As the households scattered to their rooms, footsteps echoing like gunshots in the corridor, Poirot lingered among the relics. Moonlight silvered the face of Anubis. "Mon Dieu!" he whispered to the jackal god. "What a masterpiece of confusion!" But Hercule Poirot sees through the sandstorm. Tomorrow, the final answer. Outside, the wind howled like a mourner at a pharaoh's tomb. Chapter 5. Complications and Twists. Night fell over Eldridge Manor like a velvet pall, heavy and suffocating. The fog had retreated to the moors, but a gale now howled in its place, hurling rain against the mullioned windows in furious sheets. Inside, electric lights flickered as the generator strained. Shadows leapt across the Egyptian relics like restless car spirits. Hercule Poirot had ordered an early dinner served in the dining room, ostensibly for civility, truly to observe. The long table gleamed with crystal and silver, but the pheasant went cold, the claret untouched. Eyes darted like trapped fireflies. "Eat," Poirot urged mildly, spearing a morsel with delicate precision. A murderer, like any predator, reveals himself when hunger strikes. Dr. Forsyth, still pale from his brush with nightshade, pushed away his plate. "I've no appetite. Someone in this room tried to kill me twice. First the brandy, now perhaps this food." Victor snorted. "Paranoia, Doctor, or guilt?" Evelyn's laugh tinkled too brightly. "Darling Victor, must you suspect everyone? Though I confess the thought of poison does rather spoil the vintage." Amelia Harrington crossed herself repeatedly. "The curse grows bolder. First uncle, now attempts on the living. We should burn the relics, cast them into the moat." Clara Beaumont's voice cut like obsidian. "Destroy history because of superstition. That's how empires fall." Jenkins hovered, refilling glasses with mechanical grace, but his hand trembled as he poured for Poirot. The little Belgian watched it all, green eyes glittering. "Tonight," he announced, "we reconstruct the impossible, but first, a demonstration." He produced the collapsible bronze staff from the collection. jointed segments snapping open to 3 meters with a metallic whisper. Miss Beaumont's theory: the murderer scaled the transom ledge, extended this, turned the key from outside. Clara demonstrated, balancing precariously on a chair. The staff reached, barely. The key turned with a click. "Voila!" Japp exclaimed. "Case closed!" But Poirot shook his head. "No. Observe the dust on the ledge undisturbed, and the staff's tip, scratches absent from the key. Another blind alley." Dinner dissolved into chaos. Victor accused Forsyth of switching the daggers, poisoned tip for the real one. Forsyth countered with Clara's mechanical scarab sketches, claiming she built a device to fling the blade from the ventilation grate. "Absurd!" Clara snapped, "though I could have, if I'd wanted." Evelyn produced a telegram from her reticule, fluttering it like a white flag. "From my lover in New York, dated yesterday. I couldn't have forged those earlier letters." Yet the paper smelled faintly of fresh ink. Amelia fainted dramatically, or so it seemed, reviving with accusations that Jenkins had forged the burnt will fragment to frame her museum ambitions. The butler's face crumpled. 40 years, and now this. Poirot raised a hand. "Enough! We retire to the long gallery. There, truths will surface." But as they rose, the lights guttered out entirely. Darkness swallowed the room. A scream, Evelyn's, shattered the silence. "Someone grabbed me!" Torches flared. In the chaos, Victor's arm bled from a shallow cut. Another dagger slash, this one from the display case. "Attempted murder!" he roared, lunging at Forsyth. Constables separated them. Poirot's voice cut through. "The killer panics. Good." In the flickering candlelight of the gallery, new complications emerged. Japp discovered a hidden compartment in Sir Reginald's wheelchair, containing not one but 3 draft wills. The first, everything to Victor, my prodigal son. The second, the collection to Amelia's museum, the estate to Evelyn. The third, latest, dated yesterday, everything to Dr. Forsyth, for faithful service and shared knowledge of the Nile's gifts. Forsyth blanched. He changed it after our last consultation. Said I understood his pain." Victor's face twisted into rage. "You poisoned him slowly for years, then stabbed him when he threatened to expose you." Forsyth collapsed, weeping. "I accelerated the arsenic, yes, to end his suffering, but the dagger never." A near confession. Yet the locked door mocked it. Poirot pounced. "You visited late, non? He buzzed you at 12:15. The wire shows vibration marks. He let you in, trusting his physician. Argument over the will. You stabbed him in fury. Then, the genius, you used surgical thread from your bag, looped through the key, exited, pulled it shut from the corridor, using your lancet as a hook through the letter slot." He demonstrated with string and a penknife. The key turned perfectly. Japp slapped cuffs on Forsyth. "Got you," the doctor sagged. "It's true. He laughed at me, said I'd get nothing after. All his treatments. The pain twisted me." Case closed. The household exhaled. But Poirot's eyes narrowed. "No, observe, the thread fibres, cotton, not surgical silk, and the letter slot, painted shut in 1912, the paint is unbroken." Forsyth looked up, confused. "Then I'm innocent?" "Someone framed you, docteur. Brilliantly." A deeper twist. Clara revealed a secret affair, not with Victor, but with Jenkins. "He's my father," she whispered. "Illegitimate. Sir Reginald knew, threatened to expose us both." Jenkins nodded brokenly. "I forged references to stay close, protect her." Amelia confessed forging charity documents, not for gain, but to pressure museums into accepting cursed relics, believing exposure would lift the curse. Evelyn admitted the love letters were real, but from Amelia, a lesbian liaison hidden beneath society's veil. Victor, his debts paid anonymously by Sir Reginald himself, testing loyalty. The wills? all forgeries except the last hidden elsewhere. Poirot gathered them at midnight in the Egyptian room, wind screaming like Set unleashed. The killer wove a tapestry of half-truths, he declared. Each suspect guilty of something: adultery, fraud, blackmail, mercy poisoning, but not murder. The true assassin used your secrets as smoke. He held aloft the modern scarab. This, engraved yesterday in London. By whom? Silence. Chapter 6. The revelation sunlight poured through the tall windows of the Egyptian room like the breath of Amun himself, striking golden fire from every scarab and death mask. The household assembled in a semicircle, faces gaunt from a night without sleep, eyes ringed in purple, hands clasped against trembling. The storm had passed. Only puddles on the terrace and the faint scent of ozone remained. Even the relics seemed to lean forward, eager for judgment. Hercule Poirot stood beneath the great statue of Anubis, small and immaculate in a dove-grey suit, moustaches waxed to lethal points. Inspector Japp flanked him, notebook poised. Jenkins had laid a silver tray with coffee none would drink. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, voice ringing clear as temple bells, "the moment of truth arrives. For 2 days we have chased phantoms, curses, poisons, forged wills, hidden passions. Each of you has confessed to crimes of the heart: greed, betrayal, mercy-killing, forbidden love. Yet only one among you committed the ultimate sin: murder most impossible." He paced, hands clasped behind his back. "Let us reconstruct, step by precise step. Sir Reginald locks himself in at 11:30. Miss Beaumont departs. The buzzer wire, cut at 11:45 by someone with access to the servants' corridor. Why? To ensure no cry for help. The key turns from inside. The transom ledge undisturbed. The bars immovable. No secret passage. Poirot has tapped every panel. He paused before Clara Beaumont, whose auburn hair caught the light like burnished copper. "Mademoiselle, you hated him most justly. Your fiancé buried alive for gold. You sketched tomb traps, sharpened the dagger, forged the curse on Savoy paper. You could have built a clockwork scarab to deliver death. Yet you did not." Clara's shoulders sagged with relief and sorrow. Poirot turned to Dr. Forsyth. "Doctor, you poisoned slowly for years, accelerated with arsenic, inherited in the false will. You collapsed dramatically from nightshade, self-administered for sympathy. Yet the thread was cotton, not silk, the letter slot painted shut. You are guilty of much, but not the stab." Forsyth buried his face in shaking hands. Lady Evelyn next, diamonds subdued in daylight. "Madam, your love letters, real and forged, your cocoa laced with veronal, your silk on the grate, you wished him dead 1,000 times, yet you lacked the strength to drive that blade downward with such force." Evelyn's sob was genuine. Captain Victor, rigid as a guardsman. "Capitaine, debts like chains, revolver in the boathouse, whiskey lies. You slashed your own arm in the dark for sympathy. Yet your boots left no mud on the study rug." Victor exhaled, her lifetime's tension escaping. Miss Amelia, prayer book clutched like a shield. "Mademoiselle, forged documents, marked psalms, the burnt will fragment. You believed the curse real, tried to lift it with exposure. Yet you fainted at blood. You could not wield the dagger." Amelia whispered, "Forgive me, uncle." Finally, Jenkins, the butler who had served 40 years. His silver hair gleamed. His eyes, ancient and pain-filled, met Poirot's without flinching. "Monsieur Jenkins," Poirot said softly, "you forged references, hid a daughter, amassed savings beyond wages. You discovered Sir Reginald's greatest secret, not in Egypt, but here. The Harrington fortune began not with relics, but murder. In 1885, the colonel killed his partner in the Valley of the Kings, sealed him alive for a cartouche of solid gold. Sir Reginald continued the tradition. Your wife, Clara's mother, a housemaid, died accidentally down the well when she threatened exposure." The room froze. Jenkins spoke, voice steady as stone. "He laughed when I begged justice. Said butlers are disposable. Last week he rewrote the true will. Everything to a Cairo orphanage, nothing to family or staff. Said it would bury the past forever." Poirot nodded. "You cut the buzzer wire at 11:45, knowing his routine. At 12:05 you knocked, softly, as always, with his nightly whiskey. He trusted you utterly, opened the door. You entered carrying the collapsible staff, disguised as a walking stick for your rheumatism. While he bent over the safe, you extended it, drove the dagger, already affixed to the bronze tip, between his shoulders with mechanical precision. The staff collapsed, the blade detached on impact, leaving no trace. Jenkins inclined his head, almost regal. You wiped the hilt on his own coat, smudging prints, planted the modern scarab, engraved in London during your day off. Forged the curse note on Savoy paper stolen from Madame's room. Scattered red herrings like breadcrumbs. Evelyn's silk, Amelia's psalm, Forsyth's vial, Victor's revolver, Clara's sketches. Even toppled Anubis to reveal the true will, ensuring chaos. Poirot's voice softened. Then the masterpiece. You exited, closed the door, and used the staff, extended once more, through the transom window, which you had loosened weeks ago during dusting. The bronze tip, wrapped in felt, turned the key silently. Retracted, the ledge disturbed. You brushed it clean with a feather duster on the same pole. No dust fallen, vacuum effect of the storm wind through the cracked pane. Japp stepped forward, cuffs ready. Jenkins extended his wrists without resistance. "Why the papyrus?" Evelyn whispered. "To blame the curse," Jenkins replied. "To protect Clara. If superstition took the blame, no one would dig deeper into family sins." Clara ran to him, tears streaming. "Father, no!" Poirot placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "He killed to shield you, mademoiselle. The final answer was not greed, nor revenge alone, but love. Twisted, desperate love." Jenkins met Poirot's gaze. "You understand, monsieur. A butler sees everything, endures everything. 40 years of scraps while they looted tombs and lives. When he threatened to disinherit Clara, my only child, I chose justice." Japp led him away. The butler walked erect, dignity intact. Silence settled, heavy as incense. Poirot addressed the room. "The true will, found in Anubis, leaves the collection to the British Museum. The estate divided among staff and legitimate heirs. Sir Reginald's last joke, even in death, he controlled." Victor laughed brokenly. "The old bastard!" Evelyn wept quietly. Amelia prayed. Forsyth stared into nothingness. Clara clung to the Anubis statue as though it were her father's shadow. Poirot twirled his moustache one final time. And so, order is restored, the impossible crime explained. The locked room was never locked against the one person Sir Reginald trusted absolutely, his shadow, his Jenkins. He bowed to the company. "Mes amis, Hercule Poirot takes his leave. The little grey cells require tisane and repose." As he departed in the Rolls-Royce, sunlight fully claimed the manor. The relics gleamed, freed perhaps from their curse. In the Egyptian room, Anubis seemed almost to smile. The final answer was not death. It was loyalty, betrayed at last. Chapter 7. Justice Served. The Egyptian room at Eldridge Manor stood bathed in the soft gold of late morning, as though Ra himself had descended to witness the reckoning. Dust motes danced in the sunbeams like tiny spirits released from bondage. The great statue of Anubis loomed benevolent now, its jackal head tilted as if in approval. The household, what remained of it, gathered once more, but the air had changed. No longer thick with suspicion, it hummed with the fragile electricity of truths laid bare, and wounds beginning, perhaps, to heal. Inspector Japp stood beside the door, helmet tucked under one arm, his usual gruffness softened by the drama's end. Jenkins, Mr. Harold Jenkins, no longer merely the butler, sat erect in a carved ebony chair that had once belonged to a Ptolemaic prince. His wrists bore the dull gleam of handcuffs, yet his bearing remained impeccable. Back straight, silver hair neat, eyes steady as the Nile in winter. Clara knelt beside him, her auburn head bowed against his knee, tears falling silently onto his polished shoes. Hercule Poirot occupied the centre, small and triumphant, his green eyes surveying the room with the satisfaction of a conductor whose symphony has reached its final, perfect chord. "Mes amis," he began, voice warm as mulled wine, "the case is closed, the impossible explained. But justice, she is not always so neat as a locked room. She bleeds, she weeps, she forgives sometimes where law cannot." He turned first to Jenkins. "Monsieur, you have confessed. The collapsible staff, your masterpiece. 40 years of watching, waiting, enduring humiliations no man should bear. When Sir Reginald threatened your daughter's future, you struck not just for vengeance, but for love. A love pure, even in its darkness." Jenkins lifted his head. "I regret nothing, Monsieur Poirot, except the pain to Clara. She deserved better than a father in shadows." Clara clutched his hand. "You gave me everything, protected me from him, from the truth of my birth." Poirot nodded solemnly. "The courts will see murder, but Hercule Poirot sees a man who served faithfully until service became slavery. Perhaps the judge will see it too." Japp cleared his throat. "He'll hang Poirot. No way around it. But I'll speak for clemency. 40 years of service, maybe transportation or life." Jenkins smiled faintly. "I've served my sentence already, Inspector, in silence." Attention shifted to the true will, laid upon a velvet cushion like a sacred scroll. Poirot unfolded it with reverence. "Sir Reginald's final jest," he announced. "The collection to the British Museum, on condition it bear the Harrington name forever. The estate, divided equally among legitimate heirs, Captain Victor, Lady Evelyn, Miss Amelia. But with provisions, a trust for the staff, generous pensions, and for Miss Clara Beaumont, full acknowledgment as natural daughter, with a bequest of £50,000 and the Cairo journals of her mother." Gasps rippled. Clara rose slowly, eyes wide. "He knew all along?" Poirot twinkled. "Sir Reginald was many things, cruel, yes, but never blind. He kept you close to a tone, in his twisted way. The orphanage in Cairo? A fiction to torment Jenkins. In truth, he wished you protected after his death." Victor Harrington sank into a chair, running a hand through his hair. 50,000 to the bye-blow, and I get the house." The old man had a sense of humour after all. Evelyn laughed through tears, the sound like breaking crystal mended. "Darling Victor, you get the debts too, but the relics sold will clear them. We're free." Amelia Harrington approached the Anubis statue, fingers tracing its base where the will had hidden. The curse was never real, only guilt. Uncle's guilt passed like a torch. Dr. Forsyth, hollow-eyed, spoke from the corner. "And I, the arsenic?" Poirot regarded him kindly. "Docteur, you accelerated suffering for what you called mercy. The Crown may charge attempted murder, but testify truthfully about Sir Reginald's wishes, his own requests for release, and perhaps understanding." Forsyth nodded, broken but unburdened. "I will." Japp snapped his notebook shut. "Right then. Jenkins to the station. The rest, statements at your leisure. Poirot, you've done it again." The little Belgian bowed modestly. "It is the order of things, mon ami. Chaos resolved." As constables led Jenkins away, Clara walked beside him, arm linked through his. "I'll visit every day, father, and when it's over, I'll make you proud." Jenkins paused at the door, turning to the household he had served a lifetime. "Lady Evelyn, your cocoa was always too sweet. Captain, less brandy, more backbone. Miss Amelia, your charities were the only light in this house. Dr. Forsyth, forgive an old man's silence. And Miss Clara, my daughter, live in sunlight." The door closed behind them. A chapter ended. In the afternoon hush, the survivors gathered in the drawing room for tea. Proper tea, with scones and clotted cream, as though normalcy could be summoned by willow-pattern cups. Victor raised a glass of sherry instead, to Jenkins, the best man among us. Evelyn clinked her cup. "And to absent fathers, complicated, cruel, but ours." Amelia smiled softly. "The museum will honour him, a plaque, in memory of faithful service." Even Forsyth managed a toast. "To truth, bitter but cleansing." Poirot observed from his armchair, sipping tisane, and to Hercule Poirot, who merely observed. Victor laughed genuinely for the first time. "Stay for luncheon, old chap. The least we can do." Poirot considered, then nodded. "A slice of roast beef, perhaps, with horseradish. One must celebrate order restored." Outside, the Rolls-Royce waited, engine purring like a contented cat. George, the valet, loaded the valises with practiced efficiency. As Poirot descended the grand staircase one final time, Clara met him in the hall. She pressed a small bundle into his hands, an ancient scarab, genuine this time, lapis and gold. "For saving him," she whispered, "even if only for a while." Poirot tucked it into his waistcoat, "For reminding us, mademoiselle, that even in murder, love can be the motive. Guard your heart and your father's memory." He tipped his hat and stepped into the sunlight. The gravel crunched beneath his patent leather shoes as the car pulled away. Eldridge Manor receded in the mirror, ivy-clad walls now seeming less oppressive, the twisted chimneys standing sentinel over a house finally at peace. In the distance, church bells rang for noon. No curses, no fog, only the quiet certainty that justice, though stern, had been tempered with mercy. Back in London, Poirot would regale Hastings over cocoa. "Ah, mon ami, the butler did it, after 40 years. But love, Hastings, love is the most dangerous relic of all." And in his pocket, the scarab warmed against his heart, a reminder that some treasures are not gold, but human. The final answer was served, not with vengeance, but with understanding. The Harrington curse was broken. Chapter 8. Epilogue. Echoes in Eternity. 6 months had passed since the sunlit departure from Eldridge Manor, yet the echoes lingered like incense in a sealed tomb. Spring had come to Kent in a riot of hawthorn and bluebells, softening the Jacobean edges of the old house until it seemed almost benevolent. The twisted chimneys no longer menaced, they merely watched, ancient guardians finally at rest. Hercule Poirot sat in his London flat on a morning in May, sunlight striping the Persian rug like the bars of a friendly cage. His moustaches, if possible, were more magnificent than ever, waxed to a gloss that reflected the silver tray bearing tisane and croissants. The lapis scarab from Clara Beaumont rested on his desk beside a stack of correspondence, its golden wings catching the light whenever he passed. A knock announced George, his valet, bearing a silver salver heavy with letters. Post, sir. One from the continent, Belgium by the stamp, and several from Kent. Poirot's eyes twinkled. Ah, Georges, the chickens return to roost, or perhaps the scarabs to their dune. He slit the first envelope with a pearl-handled knife. Clara's handwriting, elegant, precise, flowed across heavy cream paper. Dearest Monsieur Poirot, the trial came and went like a desert wind, swift, merciless. Father was spared the rope. The judge, moved by your testimony and 40 years of invisible service, sentenced transportation for life. He sails for Australia next month aboard the SS Orion. I will follow on the next ship. The Harrington bequest purchased a small farm near Sydney. Eucalyptus and wide skies, he says. A place where a man might stand tall without bowing. Lady Evelyn sold the Daimler and most of the jewels. She has taken a villa in Capri with a certain Italian count. Younger, handsome, and delightfully scandalous. Darling Clara, she wrote, one must live before the relics claim us all. Captain Victor, can you imagine, has reformed. The estate's sale of lesser relics cleared his debts. He married the Tutuge housemaid, the one with the tonsillitis, and manages the home farm. They named their first son Reginald, though everyone calls him Sonny. Miss Amelia's museum opened in the East Wing last month. The British Museum loaned back the collection on permanent display, the Harrington gift, from shadows to light. She placed a plaque beneath Anubis, in memory of Harold Jenkins, who served faithfully and loved fiercely. Visitors weep. I have seen it. Dr. Forsyth entered a sanatorium in Switzerland. His last letter confessed everything. The arsenic, the mercy, the greed. Tell Poirot, he wrote, the Nile took more than it gave. He died peacefully in April, watching snow on the Alps. And I, monsieur? I catalogue again, but freely now. The Cairo journals Mother kept are being published. Father's story, our story, will be a footnote. The butler's revelation. Love, it seems, outlasts even curses. The scarab you returned with your last note rests on my desk. It warms when I think of you. The little grey cells that saved my father from himself. With eternal gratitude, Clara Beaumont, soon Jenkins Poirot, folded the letter gently, eyes distant. Ah, mademoiselle, love is the only relic that never tarnishes. George cleared his throat. Another letter, sir, from Australia, forwarded. Poirot opened it. Jenkins' handwriting, still the perfect copperplate of a butler, marched across the page. Monsieur Poirot. The voyage was calm. The Orion carried convicts and dreamers in equal measure. I stood on deck at dawn, watching the Southern Cross rise, and felt free. 40 years of bowing, and now the sky bows to no one. The farm is hard earth, but honest. Clara arrives in June. We will plant lemon trees. She insists they remind her of the conservatory where you questioned us. I smile at the memory. Tell the others, when you write, that I bear no bitterness. Sir Reginald gave me Clara, in his cruel way. And you, monsieur, gave me dignity in the end. The collapsible staff. Burned it in the forge. Some inventions should stay buried. Your humble servant, no longer humble, Harold Jenkins Poirot, pressed the letter to his heart. Mon ami, you were never humble, only unseen. A third envelope, thicker, scented faintly with lavender. Evelyn's looping script. Cher Poirot, Capri is divine, sea like sapphire, lemons like lanterns. The Count proposes daily, I accept weekly. Life, darling, is too short for one husband, or two. Victor's boy is a terror, already breaking Ming vases. Amelia's museum thrives. She's engaged to a curator, dull but kind. Even Forsyth's ghost seems at peace. I kept one relic, the jewelled dagger. Cleaned, of course. It hangs over my fireplace. From darkness, beauty. Visit Poirot. bring those moustaches. The Count is jealous already. Ever yours, Evelyn Poirot chuckled, folding it away. The final letter from Amelia on museum stationery. Monsieur, the opening was splendid. Royalty attended incognito. The Anubis room is most popular. Visitors leave flowers for the butler who loved. Clara sent a photograph. She and father beneath gum trees, smiling like children. I married last week, quietly. My husband understands relics and redemption. The curse, gone. Only stories remain. Thank you for seeing us clearly. Amelia Harrington Carter Poirot leaned back, tisane cooling. George entered with the newspaper. Anything of interest, sir? Poirot scanned the headlines, politics, cricket, a society wedding in Capri. Then, buried in the births column, to Captain and Mrs. Victor Harrington, a daughter, Clara Evelyn, 7 2 Oz. A new generation, says the proud father, free of old shadows. Poirot's smile was softer than sunrise. Georges, prepare the rolls. We visit Kent. 2 days later, beneath the hawthorn trees of Eldridge churchyard, Poirot laid a small bouquet on an empty grave, Jenkins' name carved beside his wife's, though his bones would rest beneath Australian stars. The vicar approached. A sad business, monsieur, but the family, they flourish. Poirot nodded. Oui, love vicar is the only curse that lifts itself. Chapter 9. The Scarab's Return. The letter arrived on a morning heavy with wisteria and the promise of rain. Poirot, now 74 yet unbowed, sat at his breakfast table in Whitehaven Mansions, the lapis scarab from Clara still resting in its velvet box beside the marmalade. George entered with the silver tray. Express from Sydney, sir, and another from Cairo, via Kent. Poirot's moustaches quivered like antennae sensing disturbance in the ether. He opened the Sydney envelope first. Clara's handwriting had matured. Confident loops, the ink indigo now. Dearest Monsieur Poirot, Father died last Michaelmas, peacefully beneath the lemon tree we planted together. He was 81, strong, until the end. The farm thrives, 300 acres, sheep like clouds, a vineyard that wins prizes in Adelaide. Little Harold, my son, your namesake in spirit, tends the vines with his grandfather's precision. But the past refuses burial. Last month a crate arrived from England, Amelia's museum forwarding unclaimed Harrington relics sold at auction. Inside, a false-bottomed canopic jar. Within, a journal bound in black leather sealed with Sir Reginald's signet. Father's dying wish, send it to Poirot, the final answer. I cannot open it. The seal feels alive. Come, if you can bear another locked room. Or advise me. Burn it. Father's last words. Tell Poirot the scarab always returns. Your devoted Clara Jenkins Poirot's fingers trembled as he broke the Cairo postmark. A single sheet, heavy linen paper, Amelia's museum crest. Monsieur, urgency. A thief broke into the Harrington wing last week. Nothing taken, only one display disturbed. The jeweled dagger. Beneath it, someone left a modern papyrus. The final answer was a lie. The curse awakens, ink Chiles green like before. Security saw no one. The transom window, painted shut since 1925, found open. Evelyn laughs from Capri. Darling, someone's theatrical. Victor blames ghosts. I blame unfinished business. The journal Clara mentions. We sent it unopened. Did we err? Come, please. Amelia Poirot folded the letters, eyes distant. George, pack for Kent, and the rolls requires speed. 3 days later, beneath a sky the colour of Nile silt, Poirot stood once more in the Egyptian room at Eldridge. Now the Harrington wing, polished and proud. Amelia, silver threading her hair, greeted him with tears and Earl Grey. Victor, broader, weathered, clutched a pipe like a lifeline. Evelyn, via telegram, sent kisses and a bottle of 1921 Armagnac. The black journal lay on the Anubis pedestal, seal intact. Poirot examined it beneath his glass. The signet, genuine, but the leather, new. Someone rebound it recently. Amelia gasped. We sent the original crate. Poirot smiled grimly. Then someone intercepted and improved. He broke the seal. Pages fluttered like startled birds. Sir Reginald's spidery hand, but steadier, as though written in health. If you read this, I am dead, truly this time. The 1925 death was theatre. Arsenic, Forsyth's sugar pills, dagger, rubber blade, pig's blood, Jenkins, my confederate, the perfect locked room illusion, to escape creditors' taxes, and a wife who spent like Cleopatra. The real Sir Reginald fled to Argentina with the choicest relics, sold quietly, millions. Jenkins promised silence for Clara's future. But butlers keep secrets only until they don't. The curse? Marketing. Every stolen relic seeded with rumours, prices tripled. If Jenkins betrayed me, good, he earned it. The fortune is buried beneath the lemon tree he planted in Sydney. Coordinates in the scarab Poirot carries. Turn the wings backward. The final answer? There was never a murder. Only the greatest escape. Poirot laughed, rich, delighted, until tears formed. Mon Dieu! The victim orchestrated his own vanishing, the locked room, not to keep the killer out, but to keep the world from seeing him leave. Victor roared. The old devil faked his death, and Jenkins knew. Amelia paled. Then father killed a living man. Poirot shook his head. Non. Read the margin. Jenkins' hand. I discovered the ruse too late. Stabbed the dummy he left behind. The blood, real, from his own vein stored. He watched from the secret passage I never found, laughed as I confessed. Clara's voice from the doorway. She had flown from Sydney, eyes blazing. Father died believing he was a murderer for nothing. Chapter 10. The Pharaoh's True Tomb. The telegram reached Whitehaven Mansions on a fog thicker than 1925's curse. Poirot's hand shook as he crushed the yellow paper. George packed black, mourning suits, black valises, black tisane. The rolls devoured the miles to Kent. Eldridge Manor rose from the mist like a corpse from the Nile. Half the west wing gutted by fire, windows blind sockets, the Egyptian room a charred rib cage open to the sky. Firemen still doused embers that hissed like set serpents. Clara waited on the scorched lawn, older now, 41, hair streaked silver, eyes ancient as the relics she once catalogued. Beside her, Victor pipe cold, Amelia, face soot-streaked, Evelyn, returned from Capri, diamonds dulled by ash. And in Clara's arms, a child, Harold, 9 years old, clutching the lapis scarab like a talisman. Monsieur, Clara whispered, voice raw. The fire started in Anubis's base. The journal, we thought fake, but flames revealed a false bottom. Another compartment. Sir Reginald's real confession, written in blood ink. She led him through the ruins. The great jackal statue stood miraculously intact, but its pedestal had split like a cracked sarcophagus. Within, a cavity, and inside, a roll of papyrus blackened at the edges, yet legible. Poirot unrolled it with reverent fingers. Sir Reginald's hand, shaky now, truly dying. If this burns, know the truth. I never left. The 1925 escape. Delusion. Arsenic real. Forsyth's mercy. Dagger real. Jenkins' love. But I survived both. The rubber blade. My fantasy and fever dreams. Jenkins stabbed flesh. I crawled through the secret passage, dug by Colonel Harrington himself in 1885 to hide stolen gold, collapsed behind the panel, bleeding, alive. I lived in the walls 9 years, a ghost, watched you haul through peepholes, laughed at your grief, wept at Jenkins' exile. The fire? My doing. Candle to the journal, meaning to destroy lies. But the passage carried flames. I burn now, truly. The fortune? Never Argentina. Beneath the lemon tree, yes, but cursed. The cartouche I stole in 1885 was Merneptah's heart scarab. The priests warned, "He who wears the king's heart shall lose his own." I wore it, sewn into my chest after the stabbing, to cheat death. It kept me alive unnaturally. Now it consumes Clara, my daughter too. Your mother and Jenkins both. The ultimate jest. Poirot, greatest detective. You solved nothing. The locked room held a living man. The murder? Attempted. The curse? Eternal. The final answer. Some tombs refused to stay sealed. Sir Reginald Harrington, dying at last. Poirot's breath clouded in the cold ruin. Mon Dieu! He was the ghost, the creaks we heard, the moved relics, the papyrus in 1931. Victor laughed, broken, mad. The old bastard watched us mourn him, grieve, rebuild. Evelyn wept diamonds into ash. I danced in Capri while he starved in walls. Amelia crossed herself. The curse was guilt, his, ours all. Young Harold tugged Poirot's sleeve. Grandfather Jenkins said you'd come. He sent this before he died. A second scarab, smaller, emerald. Inside, coordinates etched finer. And a message, Clara said, a voice steel. From father's last letter. The tree bears fruit. Take it. End the cycle. They unearthed it beneath the churchyard yew, where Poirot once left the lapis scarab. A chest, iron-bound, Harrington crest. Inside, gold cartouches, papyri worth kingdoms, and Merneptah's heart scarab, black with dried blood. Poirot held it to the light. The priest's warning, it preserved him, unnaturally, 9 years in darkness. Clara took it. We return it. To Egypt anonymously, let the king reclaim his heart. They did. Clara and Harold sailed to Cairo. The scarab vanished into the Valley of the Kings, guided by a nameless fella who asked no questions. Eldridge rebuilt, smaller, brighter. The Egyptian room became a library. No relics, only books, light, life. Poirot visited once more in 1939 on the eve of war. Clara, grey now, served tea beneath the lemon tree replanted from Sydney seeds. Any ghosts? He asked. She smiled. Only memories, good ones. Harold, 13 tall, showed him a new scarab, carved from soapstone, harmless. I made it, the boy said. For you, no curses. Poirot took it, eyes moist. The final answer, mon petit. Some story circles begin with curses, end with children's toys. He died quietly in 1942, the soapstone scarab in his waistcoat beside Clara's lapis. Years later, in 1957, Clara, 50, stood at his grave in Brussels. She left both scarabs, intertwined. The curse was broken. The locked room opened forever. Love, not gold, was the true treasure. And somewhere, in the sands of eternity, Sir Reginald Harrington finally rested. No more answers, only peace. My darlings, we have journeyed through 10 impossible chapters, fog to fire, murder to mercy, curse to child's play. The tomb is sealed at last. If tears fell, if you gasped at the living ghost, if you believe love conquered all, tell me below. This was our longest tale, your creation as much as mine. No more resurrections, promise. But if you insist, well, the little grey cells never truly sleep. Until another mystery calls. Sleep deep, dream of lemon trees and open doors. Good night, forever.